The simple house sat in a clearing, surrounded by fields, then forest. A stream of light smoke drifted from the chimney, before being taken away by the light breeze. A small barn was located nearby, and a fence stretched from the structure, surrounding several acres. A small covered well sat by the barn, a wound rope holding a bucket that dangled inside. Wyvern Bortuk exited the house, fixing his hat. His wife Beatrice and child Finn were loading the last of the produce, and the family mule was hitched to the cart. Wyvern kissed his wife goodbye and lifted his son onto the wagon. The man climbed into the driver's seat and took the reins. With a gentle flick of the leather straps, the mule started forward. The leaves on the trees had begun turning a couple of weeks ago, and there was a slight chill to the air when the wind blew just right. Harvest was in full swing, and many of the townspeople would pay well for it. The wagon rumbled down the path, heading towards the town to sell excess produce at the market. Pumpkins, apples, pears, potatoes, and some corn would all sell nicely. In addition, they had some spare tool handles and a few extra wool blankets that Beatrice had worked on over the summer. The wind picked up slightly, gently prying gold and amber-colored leaves from the trees, scattering them on the road and the ground. Wyvern put his arm around Finn, holding him closer. The attack came from the left, a flash of deep red and fiery wings. The mule was torn from her spot at the front of the cart, being carried away into the air. The force snapped the harness, but not before yanking the cart to the right, snapping one of its wheels from the axle. Wordlessly and in a panic, Wyvern grabbed Finn and dove from the cart, shoving the boy under before crawling beneath the wagon himself. Finn, silent, fearful tears dripping from his face, watched in horror as his father motioned for him to stay quiet. For a few minutes of silence, the only sound they could hear was the wind and their own thundering heartbeats. Then, faintly, the sound of large, leathery wings flapping echoed in their ears. They heard the light thump of feet hitting the ground, followed by footsteps. Looking at his son, Wyvern slowly raised his hand and put a finger to his lips. Behind him, he could hear the creature walking, each step crunching leaves and sticks. He watched Finn's eyes. To his horror, Finn wasn't watching him. The boy's eyes were slowly scanning the area behind him, tracking something. There was a heavy sniff behind him, like that of a cow. Suddenly there was a searing pain in his leg. Something had stabbed him in his calf, making him scream. Quickly after the initial pain, a burning hot sensation spread into his leg and started to fill him slowly, almost like molten iron. He screamed and writhed in pain. It was so bad he barely registered the feeling of dozens of small, sharp teeth sinking into his leg. Finn watched paralyzed in terror as his father was dragged out from under the wagon. From above, a reptilian head ducked down and clamped over his father's head, cutting off the man's scream with a sickening crunch. The creature called, making a rattling sound before it grabbed Wyvern in his talons and leaped into the air. The boy watched, trembling, as the beast took flight, carrying the bloody form of his father into the sky with it. Finn lay curled up under the wagon for hours, trembling and frozen with fear. Eventually, the sky darkened and rain began to fall lightly from the clouds. The ground around him slowly turned to mud. When morning came, he was roused by voices. Gentle hands pulled him from the muck, wiping the grime from his face. Villagers from the town had apparently been expecting his father's arrival. When they had failed to come into town, several men were sent forth up the road to see if everything was all right. When they saw the wrecked cart and the scattered produce, they feared the worst. Finn was taken home, where the men had told his mother what had happened. The boy had said very little up until then, still in shock. After some gentle coaxing, he broke down and told the story of how a monster had come and taken away the mule and his father. His mother and the townfolk were horrified, yet found slight relief in how the child had survived the attack. The men promised to take the produce to market and would return with the proceeds. The months pressed on into winter. As Finn and Beatrice grieved the loss of their father and husband, the town stood by, watchful. Men would come by to chop wood and tend the sheep and chickens. Women and children would bring their mother and son food regularly. As it does to all wounds, time mends all. The years trudged by, and Finn gradually grew into the man of the house, strong and kind. His mother stayed faithfully with him, proud of the person he had become. The pair had finished harnessing their cart to a mule, one they had purchased years ago by that point. Finn put the final bundle of supplies into the cart, and Beatrice kissed him on the cheek. The young man walked alongside the mule, leading her into the road that would take them to town. He walked past the area where his father was killed. That spot on the road would likely haunt him forever. As he approached the town, he heard screaming. In addition to that, he heard a very familiar sound, one that would burn into his memory. He dropped the reins and climbed into the back of the wagon, getting into a bundle of the supplies. He grabbed a shield and a spear before running through the town gates. There, he saw it, the same creature that had killed his father. Its bright orange and yellow wings folded at its side. Its head sat on a long neck, snapping into a broken window of a tavern. The creature had a long tail with a sharp stinger on the end. In the years since his father's death, he had learned a name of this beast, a wyvern. Finn rushed forward, jabbing his spear into the creature. The wyvern shrieked before turning to face him. He held his spear straight out, peering over his shield. The draconian beast jabbed its tail forward, only to be blocked by Finn's shield. Finn knew all too well what the effects of wyvern venom were, having seen them firsthand. If he were stung, he'd have no chance. The wyvern rattled in its throat, spreading its wings threateningly. From a nearby house, another man joined Finn with his own spear, spurred on by the young man's bravery. One by one, more men joined Finn, many of them brandishing various polearms. The wyvern hissed and lashed out with his talons, but it was unable to get close enough to land a successful hit. Slowly, the men advanced, keeping their weapons aimed at the beast, driving it from the town. The wyvern shrieked at them, attempting to scare the people into scattering, but to no avail. It snapped at them, only to receive Finn's spear to the side of its face. After a moment's hesitation, the wyvern took flight, flying away from the town. The men cheered, clapping Finn on the back, congratulating him for his bravery. The wyvern flew through the sky. It dove down, its sharp eyes spotting prey, a deer. It snatched the animal in its talons, ripping it away from the ground and soaring up into the air once more. With a single bite, it tore the deer's head from its neck. It flew to the mountains and dropped the deer outside of a cave. The wyvern landed and barked into the cave. After a moment, a trio of hatchlings scuttled forward and began to feed on the carcass. The mother wyvern sat back, observing her young protectively, her sharp green eyes scanning the horizon. Soon, once her young were strong enough, she would have to lead them away. The area was no longer safe for them, and they needed a safe place to grow up so they would continue on to the next generation.